Kia ora everyone, welcome to this map tracing video, and today we are going to travel to the South Pole and we're going to look at Antarctica. Here I presented you an old map, and you can see that back in the days people didn't really understand how Antarctica looked like. They of course knew that there is a big land mass on the South Pole, but they had no idea what were the boundaries, and they could only assume. Here you can also see that the South America didn't really have the same shape that we used to, and those maps were only a projection of the world. This is how they think the world looked like in the places where they haven't been. The Europe, even Africa and Eurasia were more or less well studied, especially India, of course. The same with North America, not too bad. But what comes to the south, people didn't really know much about. We don't have here Australia or New Zealand. And now I'm going to show you a few other maps and pictures from the book, and I'm going to focus on three main explorers who wanted to reach the South Pole. The Antarctica was discovered eventually, and there was a Russian scientist in the Russian expedition. His name was Bellingshauser, and another one was Lazarev. They together discovered few points, and they confirmed that there is a land there. After them, that was in 1820s, after them there were few attempts to step on that frozen continent and walk towards the South Pole. Some of those attempts were successful, some not. And today I'm going to talk to you about that. When the North Pole was studied, and when few people already reached the North Pole, those who were adventurous and liked competition, they decided that now there's no point of going there. We want to explore the South. And many people wanted to be the first one who will enter the history books. Like they went there, they discovered the South Pole. And their competition began. The first one who decided to go, because he already knew that the North Pole was conquered, was Amundsen, and he was an explorer from Norway. And this person was so fit and so prepared that he got his people together and traveled to Antarctica. And now I'm going to show you another map that is more modern, and you can see how Antarctica is looking like and what happened when Amundsen arrived. This is not the best quality map, however, I am just going to show you the boundaries of Antarctica, and this is of course a modern map where all of it was studied and everything is so precise. You can see it from space in the same shape like here. Amundsen wanted to reach the South Pole, and he wanted to be the first one. From his childhood, Amundsen was a very competitive person. He was also very fit. For example, he started skiing almost at the same time as he started walking. And when he was an adult, he once read a story about another explorer who went to discover some land in the North Pole and the hardship that they got through. And Amundsen, he was from a rich family. He never had any hardship in his life, and he thought, I want to suffer. I really want to experience the suffering as they did. So this is what he really wanted. That's why he decided to start the exploration. He was actually a very, very bad student at school. He didn't even finish school, and he probably was one of the worst because it was not his interest. And so when Amundsen crossed the continent and reached the South Pole successfully, he established here a little tent, and he left a little note in this tent for Scott. And you know that Scott was another explorer who went to North Pole but also wanted to reach the South Pole. He wanted to be the first one. And Amundsen knew that Scott will come next. So he left this note to him, and it was addressed to him. He left a few things in the tent that was supposed to help Scott, and successfully returned, and then returned back home to Norway. Unfortunately, the next attempt to reach the South Pole was not as successful. When Scott arrived, he didn't know that Amundsen already been here. He, the entire time walking to the South Pole, he thought he's going to be the first. He and his team walked through this land and mountains and lots of snow. They were really exhausted by the time they arrived. The weather was terrible. And when they arrived, they saw a tent already there with a note in it. And when it happened, Scott wrote in his notebook, the worst had happened. He was not the first one. He, of course, was very disappointed, and they decided to go back. Unfortunately, the weather conditions were so bad that they couldn't make it, and they didn't survive. So that was very sad for his crew. And when the news about his adventure reached New Zealand, Scott became a hero right away. And here you can see that the South Pole is now called Amundsen Scott, because they too discovered that pole only 34 days apart. So Scott was late by 34 days. And this was the tragic moment for his expedition. And the next one who wanted to come to Antarctica was Shackleton. I'm really sure you heard his name too. So Shackleton already knew that Scott and Amundsen were here, so that couldn't be his goal. What he wanted to do is he wanted to cross the continent. No one had done it before. He wanted to be the first one who crosses the continent. So Shackleton's plan was to arrive to the South Georgia island here, where there is a last people settlement, and then from here there was a whaling station in here, and from here travel to Antarctica and start his journey. At the same time, another boat from Australia, let me show you, here we have Australia, you see, and a little Tasmania. So from Tasmania, another ship called Aurora sailed to get to the other side of the South Pole of Antarctica to wait for Shackleton and his team in this specific point. And when Shackleton finished, they were supposed to take him back. So this plan feels solid, and this is how it's all started. Exactly how Shackleton wanted. They arrived to South Georgia, and from South Georgia on the boat called Endurance, they sailed to this side of Antarctica. However, they didn't get to the land. That was 14th of December, 5th of December 1914. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that when Amundsen arrived to the South Pole, it was 1911, and it was 14th of December. Now remember that December is the summer months in South Pole, right? In the South Hemisphere. That's why they all started their journey as close to summer as possible. Unfortunately, they couldn't move past the ice. So there was quite a lot of ice in here, and they got stuck in the ice. It was so bad that their boat couldn't move at all, and the ice just was everywhere around the boat. And it wasn't just a little piece of ice, there were huge blocks of ice. The boat was taken by those blocks of ice and started drifting. So the boat was drifting together with the ice, and they couldn't do anything about it. They were just waiting until the ice melts. That was just the beginning of summer, and they had the hopes that the ice will melt. And while they were waiting, the Endurance was drifted from the opposite direction of where they wanted to be. let me now show you a picture of Endurance surrounded by ice. Shackleton took a photographer with him, and that's why his expedition is very well documented. He also had diary, and many of his crew members also wrote diaries. So this is the deck of the ice-surrounded Endurance. And you can see that there's nothing they could do about it. They tried to crack the ice, but there were just so many of it, and the Endurance was just helpless and was drifting away from Antarctica. Next, what happened is that the ice got so strong that it starts cracking the boat. And there was a massive pressure on the boat from both sides, from the ice. And even the crew members, they reported hearing the sounds of those cracking, like there were gunshots or fireworks, something like that. Finally, the ship got broken and the water started flooding in. They had to abandon the ship, and they took all the provision they had, lifeboats and everything, the dogs, and they had a temporary camp on the ice. They waited on the ice. However, the boat, the Endurance, in few weeks sunk and was nowhere to be found. Moreover, the ice started cracking as well. They tried to move their camp from one place to another, but the ice was cracking and cracking, and at some stage the pieces of ice were so small that it was even hard to stand on it. So then Shackleton said, "We need to get out." They all got into their boats and started rowing. They didn't have any sails, and they started to row somewhere. They didn't even know where to go. They wanted to get to the solid land. Let me show you another map as well that had a more schematic representation. So on this map, you can see that there are a few islands. There's also South Georgia, from where Shackleton started his journey. And luckily, the team on the lifeboats, they reached the land. And the land that they reached was Elephant Island. So they reached this Elephant Island. They discovered that this island was inhabitable. And then Shackleton decided that he needs to save his team. He needs to go and get help. I'm going to show you a few more pictures. So this is a picture of Endurance surrounded by ice, and this is where the ice already damaged the ship. and the water start coming in. And you see how now helpless she looks. When the team arrived to the Elephant Island, what Shackleton did is he chose the best, the most robust boat. It was this one. And he sailed to get help. This is a picture of his crew members who stayed on the island waiting for him. Look at those descriptions. The launch of the James Kidd for South Georgia from Elephant Island, April 24, 1916. That was 1916, and when they started their journey, it was 1914. So they've already spent almost 2 years in the cold waters, waiting and not knowing what is going to happen next. With his 4 people, Shackleton sailed off, and his goal was to reach South Georgia, the whaling station, to ask for help. So look at this. From the Elephant Island, they had to go to South Georgia, that is here. And this whaling station, it was located on the north part. However, they couldn't get to the north part. The sea was so rough. They sailed for so long and they were so tired. The sea was rough and it was too dangerous for them to anchor at any of those parts. Thus they decided to arrive where it is safer and then walk to the whaling station. Walk by foot. And this next picture that I'm going to show you is a picture of how it looked like on that island when they were crossing it. So here you can see the men of Shackleton crossing South Georgia from southern side to the northern. 51 kilometers they had to cross on foot in a very hostile environment to reach the whaling station where they can finally ask for help. When they were crossing, an interesting thing happened. Shackleton, they were all very tired and very cold, and they had to cross it by foot. And Shackleton has this feeling that there is someone present, someone is going together with them. You remember I told you that there were 5 of them arriving to South Georgia? When Shackleton left 2 at the place of arrival and took another 2 with him. So there were 3 of them walking this entire time, and it took 36 hours for them to cross. And this entire time, Shackleton felt the presence of a 4th, someone or something he felt was going together with them. And later on, Shackleton discussed it with his other 2 members, and both of them reported the same, the feeling of someone's presence. So they felt like there was a fourth person with them who was guiding them and protecting them to get to the other side. And when they got to the other side, the people at the whaling station, they were shocked. They couldn't believe that someone could come from that other side. They looked like ghosts. That's what they said. Right away, Shackleton sent a boat to pick up his 2 crew members who stayed on the other side of the island, and they successfully picked them up. And now he's trying to arrange a bigger boat to pick up his crew that is stuck on the Elephant Island. However, it doesn't happen soon. The weather condition and the ice prevents the boats coming to the South Georgia and going anywhere. With persistence, Shackleton finally got another boat sent to him through Chile, and it was 4.5 months until he could reach his team. Let's have a look at the final picture that I have here. His team was waiting for him 4.5 months, not knowing whether he's alive or not, whether he's coming for them or not. But they were waiting. They were eating mostly what they could find on the island, which wasn't much, only penguins and seals. But all of them survived, and everybody returned home. Every one of his team, Shackleton was able to take back and bring them back home. So at least in this sense, his journey was success. Crossing the South land, unfortunately, was not accomplished. It's a huge mission. There are 2,900 kilometers to cross, and it wasn't done by Shackleton. However, his crew came back safely, and the Aurora that sailed from Hobart to this site was waiting for them to arrive. Because of the bad conditions, the ship couldn't stay in place, and it was drifting away, and then at some point they decided that they can't come back, they can't stay here, it's just impossible, so they were going to go back. Unfortunately, they lost 3 members of their crew and had to go back to New Zealand. And Shackleton was really, really passionate about making sure that his crew members are all safe and everybody who participated in his plan. So he came back and he took Aurora and returned with them because it was so important for him to make sure everybody is safe. So those are the stories of great explorers who tried to conquer this land, this massive piece of land with hostile environment, a brave man who wanted to experience some heightened emotions, and they wanted to be the first, and they wanted to be remembered. And now every everybody who discovered this land, who set their foot on this land, find their names in different landmarks. As you know, the South Pole is now called Amundsen Scott. There are many other landmarks named by those great explorers. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attention and interest, and I hope that you will now